She stepped onto the plane, confident, her designer bag swinging, claiming the first-class seat she assumed was hers. The black man already seated watched in silence, his calm gaze hiding a storm. A flight attendant approached, her words sharp, accusing him of stealing the spot. Whispers spread through the cabin, eyes judging, assumptions flying. But something was off. His quiet strength hinted at a truth no one saw coming. What did he know that she didn't? A single revelation was about to flip this moment upside down, exposing a raw injustice that would leave everyone speechless. Can one seat unravel an entire system? Amara boarded the flight with a polished stride, her tailored coat catching the cabin's dim light. A corporate lawyer, she thrived on control, her days filled with high-stakes meetings and first-class tickets. This trip to New York was routine, a quick deal, then back to her sleek Chicago apartment. Settling into her seat, she barely noticed the man beside her, his quiet presence unremarkable. The plane hummed, passengers shuffled, but a faint tension hung in the air, unnoticed by Amara. She didn't yet see the storm brewing, the moment that would strip away her assumptions and thrust her into a truth she couldn't ignore. Something was about to unravel. The plane's hum faded as the flight attendant's voice cut through, sharp and accusing. "Sir, you're in the wrong seat." Amara glanced over, expecting the man beside her to fumble or apologize. But Marcus, the black man in the crisp suit, didn't flinch. His eyes, steady and piercing, met the attendant's with a calm that felt like defiance. "I'm exactly where I belong," he said, his voice low but firm. Amara shifted uncomfortably, sensing the cabin's attention zeroing in. Whispers slithered through the rows, passengers exchanging glances, their assumptions hanging heavy in the air. The attendant's face tightened, her tone icing over. "Sir, I need to see your boarding pass." Now, Amara watched, her lawyer's mind dissecting the scene. Marcus reached into his jacket, producing the pass with deliberate slowness. The attendant snatched it, scanning it with a frown that deepened into confusion. She hesitated, then thrust it back, muttering about a system error. But the damage was done. The cabin buzzed with judgment, eyes narrowing at Marcus, some passengers clutching their bags tighter, as if his presence threatened their safety. Amara felt a prickle of unease. Why the hostility? She'd seen this before in courtrooms, snap judgments based on nothing but skin, but here, it felt raw, personal. The attendant returned, flanked by a supervisor, his badge gleaming with authority. "Sir, you need to move to the economy. This seat's reserved." Marcus's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed even. "Check again. I paid for this seat." The supervisor scoffed, his impatience palpable. "We don't have time for this. Move, or we'll have to escort you off." Gasps rippled through the cabin. Amara's heart raced. She knew escalation when she saw it. Marcus wasn't budging, his calm now a quiet storm. The supervisor reached for his radio, signaling for backup. Passengers leaned forward, some filming, others whispering slurs under their breath. The air felt electric, charged with an injustice that was spiraling out of control. Amara's mind spun. Should she speak up? She didn't know Marcus, but the scene felt wrong. Too familiar, too rooted in a bias she'd fought in court. Yet staying silent felt complicit. Marcus turned slightly, catching her gaze. His eyes held no plea, only a weight that said he'd faced this before. The supervisor's radio crackled. Security was on the way. The plane seemed to hold its breath, every second stretching toward a breaking point. What was Marcus hiding? Why wouldn't he back down? And what truth was about to explode in this cabin, exposing a system that judged before it listened? The cabin fell silent as two security officers stormed down the aisle, their boots thudding like a drumbeat of doom. Marcus sat unmoved, his boarding pass still in hand, his gaze locked on the supervisor. "You're making a mistake," he said, voice steady but edged with steel. The supervisor smirked, motioning for the officers to grab him. Amara's pulse hammered. She could feel the weight of every stare, the collective judgment suffocating the air. A woman nearby muttered, "Just go, don't make a scene." The injustice burned, raw and undeniable. Marcus wasn't just a passenger. He was a symbol, and this moment was a test. One officer reached for Marcus's arm, but he raised a hand, not in surrender, but with purpose. "Before you touch me," he said, his voice cutting through the tension, "check the manifest. Seat 1A. My name's there." The officer hesitated, thrown by Marcus's calm. The supervisor scoffed, snatching a tablet from the attendant. His fingers swiped, then froze. His face drained of color. This can't be right, he stammered. The cabin leaned in, the silence now a roar. Amara caught a glimpse of the screen, Marcus's name, bolded, next to owner's suite. Owner, not just a passenger. The supervisor's arrogance crumbled, replaced by a flicker of fear. Marcus leaned forward, his voice low but piercing. You saw my skin, not my seat. You assumed I didn't belong. The words landed like a thunderclap, exposing the raw truth. Passengers shifted, some ashamed, others defiant. The officers stepped back, uncertain. Amara's heart pounded. She'd seen prejudice before, but this was a mirror held up to everyone, including her. Marcus stood, not in triumph, but in quiet power, his presence commanding the cabin. The supervisor fumbled an apology, but it was drowned by the weight of the moment. Every eye was on Marcus, the man they'd misjudged. The plane seemed to shrink, the air thick with reckoning. What would happen next? Would this moment fade, or would it ignite a truth too big to ignore? The plane landed, but the silence lingered. Marcus remained in his seat, the owner of the airline, his dignity intact but scarred. The supervisor's apology was hollow, swallowed by the hum of the cabin. Amara watched as Marcus gathered his things, his calm unshaken, yet his eyes carried the weight of countless similar moments. Passengers avoided his gaze, some whispering apologies, others pretending nothing happened. Amara felt a pang. She hadn't spoken up, and that silence gnawed at her. Marcus exited the plane, but the incident wasn't over. It rippled outward, a video of the confrontation already spreading online, sparking outrage and debate. For Marcus, this was no victory. It was another day in a world quick to judge him by his skin, not his worth. The airline issued a statement, promising sensitivity training, but Marcus knew better. Words weren't enough. This wasn't just about a seat. It was about a system that assumed he didn't belong, that reduced him to a stereotype in seconds. Amara, shaken, vowed to be better, to call out bias when she saw it. But how many others would? The story went viral, exposing the raw nerve of racial injustice. Yet Marcus carried the quiet burden of knowing it would happen again, maybe not to him, but to someone. This wasn't one man's story. It was a mirror held up to a world where assumptions still draw battle lines. Every day, people face the same silent judgments, the same snap decisions that steal dignity. Marcus's truth laid bare a question that demands an answer. How long will we let prejudice board the plane before we demand change? Share this story. Speak up. Because silence isn't just complicity, it's a choice.